Hello, today we're going to read Saving Cranes by Brenda Isavoli. Saving Cranes. Whoop whoop, it's a strange loud call that only one bird makes. Once there were almost none of these birds left, and scientists wanted to save them. It wasn't easy, but people thought these special birds were worth a lot of trouble. Whoop whoop! The bird's trumpet-like whoop is so loud that it can be heard more than a mile away. What is the name of this special bird? Think to yourself, do some self-talk, say it in your head, what you think the name of this bird is. Did you guess the name? It's a whooping crane. The whooping crane's funny name comes from its loud trumpeting whoop whoop. But a whooping crane can be quiet too. It walks silently in swampy water on tall, thin legs until, splash! Its pointy beak snaps up a shiny fish. It's right at home in wetlands. Whooping cranes eat fish, frogs, crabs, seeds, berries, and insects. Why were the whooping cranes in trouble? So why were they becoming endangered? The cranes were in big trouble. They had been hunted so much that not many birds were left. Fewer cranes meant fewer and fewer eggs were being laid. So fewer and fewer chicks were hatching. And that could mean the end of all whooping cranes forever. So scientists had to learn how to save them. Once there were only about this many whooping cranes left in the world. Wow. There's 14 cranes there. That's about all that was left in the wild. What did the scientists have to learn? Well, scientists had to learn how cranes raise their chicks. They saw that the mom lays their eggs in the spring, and both parents raise them all summer. In the fall, something amazing happens. They all fly south for the winter. But not enough cranes were taking the long trip. Scientists had to act fast. They decided to raise baby cranes themselves. So, according to the crane timeline, it says in May they lay the eggs. In June the eggs hatch. In July the chick grows. In August they're full grown. Wow! In September they fly south. So they have a very short time of development and growing as chicks. Whooping cranes are caring parents, the caption says. How could scientists raise baby whooping cranes? Well, the scientists pretended to be whooping cranes. They made a puppet costume that looked like a crane. When chicks hatched, the first thing they saw was a crane puppet. The puppet looked like a mom, so the chicks thought it really was their mom, and that's just what the scientists wanted. So the crane costume, the chicks followed the puppet everywhere it went. The little crane puppet and the whooping crane. So see the puppets on the end of the hand of that scientist in that white suit? What did the puppet do with the chicks? What do you think the puppet might do with the chicks? Think to yourselves. Tell an adult. Well, the puppet took care of the chicks just like a mom. But there was one big problem. The chicks needed to learn how to fly south. If they didn't, the crane babies would never live through the cold winter. The map with the caption says where whooping crane flocks fly south. So whooping cranes live in the north during the spring and summer. They fly south in the fall to the warm places for winter. So they're up in Canada, they're up in northern parts of the United States, and then they fly down into Texas and down into Florida for the winter. Who would teach the chicks to fly south? It A puppet mom had to teach the chicks how to fly south for the winter. So a scientist in the crane costume flew south in a very slow, tiny plane. And the chicks followed. It all worked out. Almost all survived the trip. And in the spring, something wonderful happened. Their new flock of birds flew home all on their own. It took almost 3 months to fly south with the flock of whooping cranes. Did the whooping cranes survive? Over time, that little flock of whooping cranes grew. Today, there are more than 400 birds in the wild, and scientists agree they are worth the trouble. This little acknowledgement says, the whooping cranes in this story were saved by the work of scientists from many groups. These groups include the International Crane Foundation, Operation Migration, and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Their goal is to help cranes survive in the wild by protecting where they live and fly. Only a few left. Once there were only a few whooping cranes left, but people cared enough to find a way to save them. Read to learn how, and that's what we read. How scientists saved the whooping cranes.